As the fourth game in the series, Paper Mario Sticker Star has a bit of a legacy to live up to. The Nintendo 64 original and the Thousand Year Door on the GameCube are both games I consider to be nearly perfect, sharing a similar style of gameplay that infused RPG elements with the platforming world of Mario, and it was all presented with an eye-catching papery look and feel. But then the series took a strange turn with Super Paper Mario on the Wii, which placed a greater emphasis on puzzles and platforming, but at the expense of most of the RPG elements. It was still decent overall, but it couldn't come close to living up to the high standards of its two predecessors. And now, 5 years later, Sticker Star attempts to stick closer to the template of the originals while throwing in some pretty drastic changes all its own. But do they help make the game a classic like the first two, or does it leave the game feeling paper thin? And most importantly, will I stop making terrible paper jokes? Sticker Star opens on the night of the annual Sticker Fest, where Princess Peach and the townsfolk gather to gawk at the Sticker Comet. Yeah, there's a lot of sticker stuff happening here. Of course, Bowser's up to his no-good tricks and ends up causing the comet to split into 6 pieces and then scatter around the land. He then kidnaps Peach in a hissy fit and storms back to his castle, and thus begins Mario's quest to gather the 6 sticker comet pieces in order to save Princess Peach. And that's really all you need to know about the story, because that's all there is to the story. And this marks one of the biggest, and arguably most unfortunate changes to the game. Now granted, none of the previous Paper Marios had particularly deep stories either, but the simple narrative provided the framework on which the gameplay was based. But in Sticker Star, the story takes a backseat, with it really only serving as bookends to the adventure. In other words, there's really no major additional details or context to the story besides the opening and ending cutscenes. Whereas in the first two Paper Marios, you would often take control of Princess Peach for a short while between chapters, offering some additional story elements from a unique perspective. It served as a reminder of your end goal while also giving voice to not just a princess but her kidnappers as well. And even beyond the main story, each chapter had a story all its own, with its own unique mystery or problem that needed to be solved. Unfortunately, that too is almost entirely missing from Sticker Star, which also means the countless memorable characters of past games have primarily been replaced by generic toads, most of which are confined to a single town. These sacrifices might be due, in part, to the game's more open-ended nature. Whereas before you would explore a single connected world, you can now visit distinct levels that you select via a world map. And the upside in all of this is it allows for a much less linear, more open experience. Whereas before you were basically pushed along a single path through the entire adventure, you can now tackle the levels very much out of order. So if you get tired of exploring the desert, why not take a break and go check out the forest instead? And beyond that, you'll even find secret exits within certain levels that open alternate paths on the world map, which allows for even more diversity. Unfortunately, this approach makes every level feel separated and disconnected from the rest, with only that area's theme tying it all together. In that sense, it's actually closer to a standard Mario game than it is a Paper Mario one. But on the upside, the more open structure does allow the game to expand on the use of puzzles, which is more prevalent in Sticker Star than it ever has been before. Whereas the puzzles in previous games are mostly confined to a single area, now you'll often have to look for the solution elsewhere. For example, the bowling pins here are blocking the level's exit. Now you probably can guess what item you'll need to get rid of them, but you're not going to find it anywhere around here. In fact, the very fabric of the puzzles is also handled in a unique way in Sticker Star. Basically, as you play through the adventure, you'll come across real-world things known as things. These things can then be converted into stickers via a shop in town. Then when you reach a puzzle spot, you can enter what's called Paperize mode, which allows you to plant these stickers into the environment. If you're wrong, they'll wither away, but if you're right, you'll be on your way. I would go so far as to say the puzzles are simultaneously Sticker Star's best and most challenging aspect while also being the most frustrating. While many of them are intuitive, there were several that stumped me for hours, and it's entirely due to the game's more open nature, where the things you need could be found anywhere. It can be extremely aggravating when you know exactly what you need, but no idea where to find it. And because the game provides no clue as to where to go next, you might find yourself on a wild goose chase with no end in sight. And let me tell you, it made it really hard for me to come back to the game when I had no idea of what to do next. I was even contacted by 2 fellow journalists who were at a complete loss as to what to do and needed help. Beyond the puzzle, stickers are also central to Sticker Star's completely revamped combat system. Though it's still turn-based like the first 2 games, you no longer have a set list of actions from which to choose. Instead, it's now based entirely on your inventory, with each sticker granting a single attack, and once you use it, it's gone for good. And if you use up all of your stickers, you have but one option left: run. Fortunately, you'll find these stickers littered all over the environment, so maintaining an inventory usually isn't too much of an issue, except maybe during boss battles. Now, as I mentioned, it's 1 sticker attack per turn, unless you make use of the new Battle Spinner. This feature allows you to play a game of slots that can award up to 2 additional attacks in the same turn, but at a price. While the initial upfront cost is small to start the game, it'll cost more if you wish to increase your chances. That's how they get you. You see, for every icon that you match, you'll gain an additional turn. So if you match 2, you'll have 2 turns, and 3 icons means 3 turns. But matching icons can be tricky since they just fly by. But if you're willing to pay some more cash, you can lock the first 2 wheels together, guaranteeing at least 1 match. And if you pay even more, you can slow down the entire wheel, making it easier to match all 3. Another big change is that you can no longer choose which enemy to target. Instead, because the enemies stand in a line, you always target the front one first. But if you gained any additional attacks with the battle spinner, each one will target the enemy next in line. Oh, and there are a few stickers too that will attack all the enemies. This totally new combat system felt completely fresh and fun at first, but there's some cracks in the armor that only grew deeper the more I played. One of the problems is that the combat is both overly simple while also being overly complicated. Hear me out. In past games, you always had several core options at your disposal. You could choose between a jump or hammer attack, or you could defend, or use a special move, or you could switch positions with your partner for strategic reasons, or even switch partners entirely, or use an item. And then you made that choice all over again for your partner, every turn, which gave you ample room to mix and match tactics. In contrast, Sticker Star gives you exactly one option: attack. Okay, you really have two options, you can run too. That's it. But within that one option is a ridiculous amount of other options that are completely dependent on what's in your inventory at that exact moment in time. It reminds me of scientific studies that have shown if you give someone too many options, they'll start making worse decisions. That's exactly how I felt here, searching through my ever-changing inventory for the optimal attacks. Actually, even that's not quite right, as it's more about preserving your best attacks for the inevitable boss fight, which only further complicates the process. Now, to be clear, it is fun early on to experiment with a wide variety of stickers and see what all they do. But you eventually amass a collection so big and unwieldy that every single turn in battle becomes an ordeal as you sort through it to decide which sticker to use. I'm not kidding, you eventually amass 8 pages which can hold 15 stickers each. That's potentially 120 stickers to sort through for every turn. And even worse, the stickers may not even be in any sort of order, and with no way to organize them during battle itself, it turns into a complete mess. But the biggest problem with the combat system is that there's no sense of accomplishment for winning a battle, since everything you earn as a reward is expendable. Because battles are entirely inventory based, you no longer gain experience points or level up at all. Instead, you earn coins and stickers if you're lucky, both of which are entirely disposable. The lack of any permanent gain really makes combat feel more like a chore, particularly as you might find yourself burning through the very inventory you seek to retain for an upcoming boss battle. And because there's no real incentive to battle once you've filled your inventory and saved some cash, you might reach a point where running away is actually the optimal strategy. Especially because there's no penalty for it. Hell, the enemy even disappears from the map as if you had defeated them anyway. The only time the combat itself was actually challenging was during one of a handful of boss battles, and even then, every single one of them became a pushover as long as you stock up on the ultra powerful stickers made from the real world things you found, which can demolish all but the final boss in a few turns. Overall, while I applaud Sticker Star for trying some new things, they ultimately do more harm than good, quickly wearing out their welcome and without making up for what features they replaced. Although the more open gameplay structure had potential, it's hampered by a dull, uninteresting world that's devoid of most of the charm that the series is best known for. Add to that a tedious combat system, a lackluster story, occasionally frustrating puzzles, an overall lack of a sense of mystery or discovery that was so prevalent in past games, and you have a game that, for me, was often more irritating than enjoyable. Although there are a few flashes of the typical Paper Mario brilliance, such as with a fantastic and humorous script and a couple of later levels, they're completely overshadowed by everything else. While Sticker Star is closer in terms of gameplay to the first two games, it's missing the heart that's the lifeblood of the series, which is something even Super Paper Mario understood. And that, on top of everything else, is why I'm giving it 2 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more reviews and other things gaming too.